Welcome back to Gray Squadron Gaming. We're here at Adepticon Day 1 with Will and Will. I will let them each introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Will.
So I'm Will. I'm the VP of Creative Direction and Strategy for / co-head of studio for Atomic Mass Games.
Great, welcome.
I am also Will, and I am the development director.
Development director. Something like that, right?
Yeah, titles really matter around this.
It's very important.
All the title down.
So we're going to be interviewing Will, at least you, twice this Intercon. Maybe Pagani too, I don't know, we'll see. But today I figured we'd focus more on organized play, some hobby questions in general, maybe some just kind of rules theming to you guys' development process. So let's kick it off with organized play. We were able to get a box of the new booster pack, kind of surprise organized play cards, and we opened them up on the channel, showed people what was in there. Really cool idea. What was the inspiration to kind of go almost that like TCG kind of angle with the prizes?
So the idea originally really landed with me watching what our sister studio FFG was doing with Star Wars Unlimited, and so they had this weekly play kit program where effectively stores could sign up, they get these booster boxes with unique cards, and the way in which players would earn those cards is to go in and just do gaming things, play a game. It wasn't always event type, right? It was just a way to get people to want to come to the store and to reward them for engaging with the products, in the community. And I thought that was super cool. And so I kind of took the idea to the group and I said, what if we did this? Like, could we do this? How would we go about it? Like, the idea of being able to do really premium, like cool alternate cards is always very exciting. And we started running with it. Talked with Pagani, who did a lot of the collation work, and decided like how we would be able to create these different tiers of rarity, what that would go into. Worked with our great producers, Andy and Summer, along with the production team at Asmodee, because all of our stuff, right, gets published through Asmodee, and so they do like all of the final manufacturing and the distribution and stuff. And so they worked with us to try to understand like what we were trying to do, introduced us to some manufacturing options that allowed us to do, TCG style things. And then of course we got to work with our fabulous art directors to create brand new art, right? The black and gold,
they are really
kind of unique pieces, and that was really spearheaded by our amazing art director Preston. And he found a great artist to work with and kind of concepted those things. And then from there, it was really just all right, let's put it all together and see if the idea lands within the community. We were able to reveal it last Adepticon. Ran into some production problems because it's always more complicated to do something that's this complex and unique. And we kind of hit a point to where it was like, okay, well, we wanted to ensure that when this came out, it was the best experience possible. Yeah. And that meant that when things weren't quite right, we had to make a decision as to we could send it out and people probably wouldn't really notice, or we could delay it and get the things fixed, right? Make sure the rarity was really good, make sure the card distribution of the packs was as correct as it could possibly be based on collation and stuff. And so unfortunately it took us a little bit longer to get to the point to where they're coming out, but they're coming out next month. You got to open some boxes.
We got to open
very cool.
Yeah, I think our biggest surprise was the rarities you mentioned. We didn't know there was going to be different, at least I didn't know there was going to be different. So for those who haven't watched the video, a lot of the art cards have a regular, I call it, I don't know what you guys call it, you let me know, spot gloss, which is just like the title is shiny, and then full foil, the whole card is foil. And then the Maul command card also has his gold symbol in it too, which is really cool.
Pagani, who built the collation, can talk more about the rarities and all of that.
So there's all the things that you saw there, and then that Maul card with the gold symbol on it has gold emboss like plating on it, and that's the like ultra super chase rare version.
Yes.
Of course, there's no functional difference here, right? So you're not like chasing promos for a power level advantage or anything, of course. But if you want the like super duper coolest Maul card, that's what you're looking for in this pack. So there's only a couple of those in each of the booster boxes. So if you go to your store and they get one of these boxes, there might only be 2 or 3 of those total cards in that box, maybe even less. I think you guys got maybe
one. Yeah.
So 1 is obviously I think the minimum we were hoping for the collation, but I think 2 to 3 should be more standard for what's going on there. But it is random, so maybe we'll get 5, maybe we'll get 9.
Yeah.
That's the whole chase rarity there, and kind of bringing that as a promotional item I think was very exciting. Because, I mean, I play a lot of card games. I love chasing that kind of stuff, and that's just cool. And being able to bring that into a miniature hobbies game sphere is just kind of cool. And, I mean, we all love promos.
Who doesn't?
This is a great way to get a whole bunch of different promos into people's hands with some chase rarity in there. And I don't know. I think that's cool.
I think it's very cool. How did you guys decide on what characters to start with? Because from the box is very, let's say, Civil War-esque kind of style. Yep. Like it's the galactic kind of thing.
Yeah, so we just kind of picked cool stuff, right? Which I mean, to me, that's a little cop out answer, but it's not faction balanced, so there's not necessarily the same amount of stuff for each of the different factions in there. It's mostly what kind of cool stuff do we have and that kind of thing. And then as we progress, those factions are going to get more balanced out. So there's less cards for some of the factions in this one. There'll be more in the next one, and less for some of the different factions.
A lot of it was,
and that also means there are more coming.
Right. That was my next question.
So
A
this
lot
is
of
not
questions
the
we
only
got
time we're doing
was,
this.
are we going to see any for like Republican separatists in the future?
So, so like kind of the initial genesis is that we, again, going from the experience first and just creating the coolest collectible cards that we could. We told our art directors, we were like, just give us the ideas, give us the best ideas, give us the ones that are cool, and then we'll kind of allocate them. And so after we got the initial like black and gold pieces, it then came down to dev and that kind of stuff to say, okay, we have these characters that came through, right? We really wanted to give the artists free reign to really create and make the coolest things they could. So we dictated none of that to them. And then when we got those initial pieces, then every set, they were split up by box, and then we built the rest of the set from those, right? And so what that kind of meant was that, like Pagani mentioned, there isn't necessarily a faction distribution that's equal per box, but for example, in the second box, which is already in production and likely to come out, in the next 6 to 8 months, to allow this box enough time to proliferate for players to like go through it, hopefully collect most of the cards in it, maybe not all the ultra rares, but that one has technically no Empire cards, but it has a Boba Fett. So Boba Fett's one of the featured ones in it. So if you're an Empire player, you might be chasing that Boba Fett, but there's no specific Empire card, but there are Republic cards in it, right? So that kind of rotation, making sure that people will consistently see different things, but at the end of the day, kind of understanding that, well, these cards can be used in play, primarily we view them as really cool collectibles for players, just in general, to have in a collection, to be able to show off. And then ideally, talking about the trading card game idea, this gives communities another way to interact with each other and to have fun by like trading, right? So I want to try to get the full set for Maul. You want to try to get the full set for Anakin in set 2. Let's go ahead and start like swapping, right? Like maybe you got the gold foil Maul and somebody got the gold foil Anakin, and you're like, I really want the Anakin. You want them all. Let's swap. It's just fun ways for us to come together again as people, as players, and have those touch points of interpersonal communication, have the excitement of like somebody opens the cool pack and says, oh my gosh, you got it. Like, that's awesome.
Those are cool moments.
Right? It all just comes back again to like, at the end of the day, what we're doing is creating cool communities. We're creating experiences through games and through playing those games to build community and have those relationships. So like, whenever we can find neat ways to do that, I think we're always very excited.
Yeah, and I love how you guys, you mentioned it already too, but not everyone likes tournaments, right? And I think people forget that because they get so hyper fixated with the meta in the tournament. But some of us and some people in our area like casual play, and they can come and check mark the box they painted in the miniature, and they get a pack of cards, and it just gets people together. So I think that was a really cool idea. So you have your competitive tournament, like we're here at Worlds, they have their own promos, but then you have this other promo that's more for casual and for
the competitive guys can certainly get these for sure, right? Like go and play a game, that gets you a pack. Paint a miniature, that gets you a pack. I think one of them is teach someone how to play.
It
gets you a pack. Like, so you can. There's a lot of different ways to get these packs. You're not stuck in any one lane doing this kind of thing. So,
and obviously, like stores can distribute the packs however they feel is going to be best in the community. If you're running like a league event, right? You're playing the games anyway, so you just be like, hey, only games that are of the league are going to count for this. Come join the league and get the packs. You can give them out for tournament support if you have extras, and you're just like, hey, we're going to throw some extras out for tournaments. Maybe you don't use them all, just whatever. Like, it's always up to the communities themselves and the stores to do what's best with these materials in order to build and promote the game, right? We provide frameworks that we think work best for the vast majority, but it's never going to be, one size fits all.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great idea. One of the questions we got from the community a lot and was to ask was, in the past for organized play, you guys did things like the Dianoga events, Pablo's Wild Ride, right? Some more, we'll call it narrative organized play. I know there's been nothing announced yet, and the roadmap is still to come, but do you guys have plans, or would you like to see that space again where there's not just collectibles for doing, but some narrative-driven, some extra missions that are fun just for like one-offs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is something that we would love to explore. The sort of trade-off with that is development time, right? So we're creating full-scale war at the moment. It's something that we're working on. We're testing it here. We have players. We have 195 V1s versus 10 ATSTs on the table over there right now, and it's brilliant. If you get a chance to walk past and look at it, it's incredible. But that takes development time, right? So there's development time that has to go into products. There's development time that has to go into alternate formats, and those alternate formats could be something like full-scale war. They could be these narrative fleet kits kind of things, like we did with Dianoga or Papu or that kind of stuff. So I would love to get back to those kind of things and do more of those in the future. But it's just not the cards like right now.
Sure.
But certainly something we're looking at. We're not done with those.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I guess the promos is more the art doing the work, and you guys, so you don't have to do the development time because it's all existing stuff. It's just cooler looking stuff, I guess.
So it's a different department, kind of, if you want to look at it from a business perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's change gears a little. Let's talk a little bit about the hobby space in general. We're kind of sitting here. We're looking at the paint area where you guys can paint your
little add figures. Yeah.
So that's great. So just kind of without any spoilers for the event coming up here soon, but what has been your favorite mini you guys have made or worked on so far, or painted even? Like, what is some of your favorite things and why?
So I'm going to give a tiny spoiler.
Please
It's
do.
going to be, I guess, fully spoiled tomorrow. But Dallas has a special Magneto miniature that is going to be on the live stream tomorrow for the Magneto encounter, which I'm not even sure we've announced it's Magneto. And that is like one of my favorite miniatures I've ever seen.
Now I'm excited.
And I don't know. I'm a Magneto fanboy. Everybody knows that. So that guy's great.
You like classic red or white Magneto? Which your
I
vibe?
like all Magneto.
All Magneto.
What I will say is I think Age of Apocalypse Magneto has the coolest helmet.
He does.
He does. So I would agree with that.
Sure.
I like. There's been a lot of cool stuff. I really enjoyed working on the customizable Jedi, which mine got featured in one of the hobby blogs, one of the two that I did. That was really cool. The answer that I would give you recently, I can't because it would spoil some stuff that I'm not going to spoil. But you can catch on the next one.
We'll know what it is. I'll ask him again next
week.
interview.
Talk about it. I'll even show you a picture of what I've been working on the paint table at home. It's pretty cool. And it's like a lot of stuff. Every time we kind of go and do a new thing, our engineering team, our sculptors, our hobby team, like they just knock it out of the park. They continue to make better and better and cooler things. Like I cannot wait to get my hands on the Jedi Council pack and have those characters. It was a blast to paint them in Shatterpoint, and like the evolution of and the difference in style and design from Shatterpoint to like Legion. I'm excited to paint them all over again.
Yeah,
right?
no,
I cannot wait
look
to
amazing.
do another Mace Windu and to do a Shock T and to finally do a Kiadi movie because I never painted the one for Shatterpoint because it's a weirdo, but I'll do it for Legion. It's fine.
I'm really excited for Shock T personally.
Yeah.
For Legion.
So
Really
I think there's just a lot of cool stuff that's coming across everything, and so it's hard to pick just one. Obviously, the new press fit Fast Mini.
I was going to ask about that next.
Technology is very exciting. It's being rolled out in Marvel Press Critical Alliances, but it's absolutely a thing that we want to utilize as an entry into the hobby. Right?
For those who don't know what that term is, though, just kind of give us an idea of what that means.
So
you say press fit.
if you think about like a snap kit airplane or anything that doesn't require glue, so effectively you can assemble it and it will stay together more or less based on how much you handle it without needing to be glued. Now, obviously, if you're full in the hobby, you already have the glue and everything, you probably will glue it because I always caution people if you're going to put the time in to paint it, like just glue it. Because, well, the press fit is pretty tight and it doesn't really come apart. It will with enough force, like you can pry it back apart, right? So the nice thing about it, though, is like that allows players one less barrier, right? When you're like, oh, I want to play this new game. It's a hobby game. You have to build it. It's like, yeah, but building it now is like building Legos, right? It's like building. You just plug them together and there they are. And much like Legos, you can pull them back apart and rebuild them, but only in one way. They're not as customizable, right? Because it's all keyed very well. But the engineering skill and kind of the understanding of the manufacturing, being able to do tolerances that actually holds together really tight and makes it so that you got to pry it apart, with a blade if you want to get it apart, that kind of stuff. Really amazing. Like incredible work from the folks that did it. Kudos to Kevin, Marco, and Evan who really spearheaded that along with a lot of our other team. But it's very exciting from the idea that like if, there's no question in my mind if we had known how to do this back when we were working on the Legion starters would have been impressed with it. Because you really don't sacrifice anything from a experienced veteran perspective. Again, they glue, they paint just like normal. But being able to go to a new player or somebody who's like first getting into the hobby and say, here's the starter box, all you need is some nippers, right? Have you ever built a Gundam kit? Have you ever built a Revel model airplane? Okay, great. Same thing, right? Same.
Yeah.
So it really removes kind of that extra step that can sometimes hold people back from finding the joy of the hobby. And I also think there's something about like just pushing something together and watching it like assemble that is so satisfying. It's so fun.
And the sprues are colored, right? If I remember.
So in MCA they are, because it's not, you can paint them, but it is a board game experience.
Sure.
So the
But
solid
same scale
color,
as
yeah, absolutely same scale. The hero minis and the villain mini, the Green Goblin, are transferable into
That's
as
awesome.
alternates for the game. So it has value across the different spectrum. Maybe you want a cool new Spider-Man sculpt.
Who doesn't?
It's all there, right? And then, of course, if you're somebody who never played the tabletop miniatures game, you come in for MCA, you're going to see, oh, this game is really awesome. Oh, wait, I can take these miniatures from it and like play this other game with them. Sign me up, right? More free content is always value, and that kind of stuff. So it is really exciting, I think, like from a new player perspective, talking about how do we bring more players into these cool hobbies. That fast mini, that press fit technology is really something that we're going to be able to leverage to just open the doors to more and more players so that we can fill this hall even fuller and make Hank's team have to make more tables and all of that for all the different games.
That's always great. One of the things,
You're full, by the way. Basically every table in here.
one of the things I think I've learned, we put out some painting videos of how to paint certain things, and response has been really well. But people want even more of an intro, so they've been asking for painting videos of like the speed paints or contrast paints, right? Things to get on the table quicker. And I think people who've been in the hobby for a long time don't realize how hard it is for someone brand new without any paints or brushes or nippers or glue to get in. So the press fitting with a mini that's already colored for the board game, and then as you progress in the hobby, you're like, well, now if I paint this, I can just step over here and play MCP with a kit, and that's it. So it's a nice step, and I think the hobby's getting more and more friendly towards newer players than it was just like even just 3-4 years ago, for example.
100%, right? And I think like one of the things that's really exciting is I know that I don't think we've officially announced the price for MCA yet. People have kind of wondered. There have been some other like miniatures dedicated hobby board games that do similar things, but their price has been in line with like what somebody who understands the premium nature of that hobby game would be. And with this, we were very conscious of like we wanted to make it compete well within the board game space. We wanted to be very price competitive, and so MCA Marvel Crisis Protocol Alliance's Night of the Goblin is sub $100.
Nice,
right?
That's really good.
It is priced just like any other board game with similar components or even less components at a much higher quality because of the hard plastic and the fact that you're going to get to like press it together. And I think people will find that they really enjoy that. So it is very much like it's a hard swing into stepping into or bridging the gap between board game and tabletop miniatures for us and for the industry in general. And so I'm really excited to be able to do that again, because at the end of the day, I think what we always talk about is just more players, more better.
Yeah,
right.
No,
Building the community, no matter where they wind up going, like it's just great, right? We just want to see more people fall into the hobby, find the joy of it, find the excitement of it. If we can, be that bridge with Marvel Crisis Protocol Alliances or with something else, we're excited to do that.
No, that's fantastic. I know you mentioned previously you're kind of in the company is in a form to go with hard classics for a lot of the old Legion stuff. Not everything, but a lot of things are getting resculpted. And one of the reasons you mentioned in one of the interviews was so that way it takes like speed paints or contrast paints better. And just to kind of share some community feedback, they do.
Yeah.
And people are very happy. I have not used them yet, but I've been hearing a lot about the Army Painter markers.
Oh, the markers, yeah.
Have you guys got a chance to use those?
I have used those, yes.
So a lot of new players really seem to like those, and I want to try it just to see what it is. But they say it works really well. For example, on the new clones and the new Jedi, they were doing
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, the sharpness of the lines, the way in which the engineers like kind of re-detailed stuff with the knowledge, right? I mean, you look at the original Legion sculpts. Stylistically, they're of course different. They're in a very different material, but also it was in an era before a lot of those painting methods had become commonplace. So even if you take out the idea of like, well, that was the style and that was the material, the way in which miniatures were designed and thought about didn't consider that as a painting method. So it was very different. It was like traditional 3-step shade, base coat, shade, highlight. Yep. So being able to go back and redo that stuff with the knowledge of like how people are approaching the hobby, what kind of new tools are out there for new players to be able to become like comfortable with it, or even for veterans to speed up, because we all have a pile of shame. It just happens. Sometimes you want to burn through it.
It's a pile of potential.
Pile of potential. I'm sorry, a POP. That was a big deal. So we haven't gotten everything resculpted in hard plastic, but I guarantee people that everything is going to eventually get there.
That was my next question. Was
we are still moving forward. it just, between, like Pagani said, with development timelines, right? Production is also, there's only so much room, there's only so many engineers and all that. So we could have resculpted everything into hard plastic, made nothing new. Obviously, we didn't want to do that. We still want new things coming to the game. So it's a balance of like, okay, we're going to do these things because they're really important. We're gonna wait on these things, and they're gonna later, like fleet troopers, shore troopers. They're coming. There are hard plastics. We've actually seen them, so we've seen them. You won't see them for a little bit longer, I think, but they are in the process of being done. So ideally, the next year and a half or so, we'll be able to start talking about those, and they'll be rolling out into the public. But yeah, end of the day, the goal remains the same as when we announced it. I think in 2024, when we first showed off the first resculpts of hard plastic. Our goal is to get through everything and to have the whole line be, high quality hard plastic. And now that once we get to the end of that, it's going to be like, well, but we should also make like the starters probably fast minis. So let's redo them again. The cycle never stops.
I'm glad you said that. So it's fair to say, like, let's just use the fleets and shores example. They put out more so you guys can get the minis and not have to look for them. But the hard sculpts are coming sometime down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
That's what most of us assume, but I think it's good to hear.
A big part of it, right, is like we talked a lot about this in managing the transition of editions and the fact that a lot of the old stuff went out of print, but now we have all these new players coming in that you're going to want fleet troopers. They're pretty good. I'm told they're pretty good with Cassian. I hear.
Cassian.
Somebody mentioned that once, and they might be right. So you don't want to lock out new players for 2 years while we're trying to get through the process to be able to get this unit. So we have the old sculpts. We can make them available. That means that new players, as they come in, are not locked out of being able to make important builds or to evolve with the meta and that kind of stuff if that's what they want to do. Or maybe just love fleet troopers. You don't want to wait. And then eventually, when we get to that new unit of fleet troopers in hard plastic, right, you're going to be able to update and upgrade, and maybe your painting skills are better by that point. So you want to go back in and do a new unit so it looks like your more modern painting style. There's a lot of reasons why I think, doing it once in one way and then coming back with a better or newer sculpt in another, we see that all the time in the hobby. So it doesn't really, I don't think it hurts us from a business perspective, and obviously from a trying to be the best we can for the community and the player base. It's really important to make sure that as much is available as fast as possible. And this year you're kind of seeing that. I think there've been a ton of reissues.
There's been a
couple
ton.
of months. We still have several to go, but hopefully by February of next year, we'll have reissued the entire catalog from previous.
That's
which
impressive.
Is not too bad, right? Some of that will still be in soft plastic. A lot of it will be in new hard plastic, and of course, we'll have all the new stuff that Pagani and the team have been working on as well.
Which we'll talk about in the next interview after the keynote. We can talk more about that. And then one of the questions I get from the general community a lot, and in the hobby kind of space, is let's say I want to come to a tournament with my Star Wars Legion miniatures, okay? And it's an official, let's use Worlds as an example. And I've kitbashed a little bit, but it's all Legion kitbash. So I took like the customizable Jedi head and put it on the Rebel Trooper. Is that fine? Do you guys like that? Do you want to see that? Or do you prefer it staying like more traditional? Just overall thoughts on that kind of space.
Absolutely, right? Like engaging the hobby and creating your own miniatures is something that we absolutely want to see. There are some rules that we lay out in the tournament packet for it, which is primarily don't be confusing, right? Make sure that whenever you're doing these kind of things that it represents what you're doing and that it is clear to your opponent so that there is no question. But yeah, if you want to swap around heads, you want to do some different arm options, armor, that kind of stuff, I think that's all great. And look, you can even do different blasters and stuff too. Just don't be confused, right? Is really my only thing there. And go crazy and be creative. Like I love doing that kind of stuff personally. I love alternate paint schemes. I love all that kind of stuff. And I'm really big on that. I think if people haven't done it in the past, that can be a really interesting place to go for your hobby. And it creates it creates such a different experience than just putting a kit together and painting it and having it. Like that's awesome, but like I don't know, I'm on my 3rd unit of marksman right now, which I love, by the way.
Gotta mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, so now I'm like, okay, maybe we can get some ARF bodies in there, get some different poses, get some different things in there. So like, yeah. So I'm big on it, for sure. But just don't be confused.
Sure.
That's the one, right? That's the one.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's always like, well, how do I know if I'm cheating? Well, do you think you're cheating? Do you feel like you're cheating? Because if you have an inclination that like this might be advantageous and disingenuous to your opponent, maybe don't do it, or maybe talk to them about it, right? The big example is always, if you have the Rebel commander with the big blaster, and then you have a Rebel commander with like melee weapons, you're like, well, the big blaster's the melee guy, and that guy's the blaster guy.
Yeah.
Like it's a clear-cut example of like someone's going to get confused, you know, purposely or not, like, right? Because don't do that. But if this guy, you know, if your stormtrooper leader doesn't have an E11 but has, you know, a DC-15, I don't think anyone's going to be confused by that, right? Like, there's not really a way in which that's going to likely cause confusion willfully or unwillfully. And I think the vast majority of those confusion cases that we're trying to watch out for are the unintended ones, right?
Makes sense.
It's the time where, like, you're deep in a game, your brain is fried because you played 3 rounds, and like a lot of things have happened, and suddenly you're just like, this is the guy who's this, but it's actually this guy who's this, and this guy's that, and you just go, this guy's this, and you do that, and it gives, you know, either you a disadvantage or an advantage, and it's just it's a genuine mistake, right? So if we can find ways to avoid that and make things very clear, that's always the goal, right? The goal is that both players have minimal opportunity to have a whoopsie, because of just how much the games ask you to do and think about, right? And so it's very easy to just be like, this, and then you're like, oh, I forgot, right? I think we all have those moments.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
So we just don't want to add to that, but we absolutely want to see creative expression. We want to see people like create dope ass things, and all of that stuff. But it's true.
That's the official term.
Yeah,
It's the official term. No,
DAT.
I love the ultimate builds, and for the people who got the starters, some people were able to get a Hondo early before the Pirates came out. Hondo, for those who haven't built the sprue, he also comes to the top half of the Pirate Captain body. I'm assuming that is.
Yeah.
So I took that and put it on an ATRT Rebel legs and put it in the bus. So the bus, you have the driver, and then you have the captain sit with his binoculars looking out the window that way, and it works perfect.
Cool.
So now Chat Collective is a little pirate captain, and I love doing things like that. I just think it's fun and different and unique, right?
It's such a fun, like, creative expression, right? And like, I never would have thought to put him inside anything like that. I don't know. It's just so cool. It's just so cool.
It's a lot of fun. Okay, we'll kind of come off hobby for a little bit, and we're going to go to some like general kind of rules ideas, more of how you guys came up with the rules than is like explaining the rules. So one of the ones we get the most in the channel by far, it might be more because the wheel bikes are out now,
Sure.
and Grievous, is overrun.
Yes.
People are very confused about like when the template goes over them, it counts. It necessarily doesn't have to move over it, right? So correct. Yeah. So that's the rule. But more, how did you guys come up with that and the change from the original rule? And like, what was the process when you guys figured out like, we probably should change this?
So originally, overrun was only on vehicles, which Grievous, of course, is a vehicle, so that stays consistent here. But then we put it on other things like the Genoshan Force Bike and stuff, and that was really where the problems came in, because the vehicles have a lot of restrictions on where you can place your movement tool, but the Genoshans had none. Like, right, you can spin in any direction, do anything like that, and then the original rules had you had to move over them.
Yes.
Which obviously Genoshans don't move over because they don't move down the tool. So we had to change it when we added in things like that on non-vehicle units that had a lot more options. That did open up some other things, like now you can kind of just like put your tool over, but you don't have to go all the way, but you can still get your overrun attacks. And that's fine, right? This is sort of for a simplicity's sake. We can do this kind of thing without having to create something that's wildly complex to hit all the different corner cases. So does it create a little bit of weirdness? Sure, sometimes it can do that, yeah. But I think it's better than the alternative of creating sort of bullet lists and paragraphs that have to explain how vehicles work versus how trooper units work versus how other things could work, right? Like, so it's, yeah, that's kind of how we ended up at that conclusion for that type of rule.
No, that makes sense. And then we'll stay on overrun just for a second too. Another one we get some clarifying questions on is most weapons, if it says like Pierce 1 or they stack, right? So it becomes Pierce 2 if you have 2 weapons. Overrun doesn't stack. Overrun just how many times you can do the overrun.
Correct.
So how did that come about, and like how did you guys, I guess, land on doing that with the numbers versus the other way?
So that is kind of an oopsie on our part. That originally happened with swoop bikes way back in the day, where swoop bikes had override 1. I don't remember exactly how it went. I think it was override 1 originally, and then there were 2 of them.
Yes.
And then we had it stacking, so then you could have override 2. But then when one of the guys was defeated, then you went down to override 1, and then it massively changed the output of the. So it was just this whole thing, and by making it just not a stacking keyword, we just have a consistency all the way.
You can control it even if the unit's losing. Like wheel bikes lose a guy, it's still the same over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Yep. So that was kind of the thing there. And once again, like, overrun is a very complicated keyword that has a lot of niche interactions inside of it.
It does.
And it's kind of been brought to the forefront by these wheel bikes coming out and really utilizing it a lot. And for anyone paying attention at home, things like that can be very confusing to players are usually somewhere that we look when we're doing future rules updates to help simplify and bring clarity. So we hear all these questions and we see these things. So it is something that we're looking at. Like, can we achieve the same effect with less confusion? As something that we could see in a future update.
I think it's one of those things. If you just learn it this new way, it's not really that confusing, to be honest. I think it's more of the combination of people who are still stuck in the older way.
Well,
and
it's
it makes
such,
it a little
it's
bit
such
more
a rare
complicated.
rule, right? So many people probably haven't played it since wheel bikes came in, and they didn't ever really play against force bike or notions.
Yeah, it was the what was the
It was
pikes?
force bike, right?
Yeah, it was the force pike,
Called
and
force
it's
bike. I mean,
and it's the
I don't know.
and
Yeah,
it's
the
the
spears.
swoops. Those are the only two, right?
I think those were the
Oh,
only two
and
before.
the flutter.
And the
with the
fluttercraft with the bombing.
Yep.
Like, it was just a very rare rule.
It wasn't super. Yeah.
And now that it's really come to that forefront, we're getting a lot more questions about it, and it's probably very likely that people haven't played against it since it's changed and updated. So they got the old one stuck in their head, plus the new one stuck in their head. They're mishing them together and taking half from each and things like that. But it's when we see these style questions, it's always something that we're keeping an eye on. Like, can we do better? Sure, right.
And then the last question in this kind of space is Grievous in the wheel bike, who has a grenade slot.
Yes.
This has been a big debate in the community
Yes.
of why he has a grenade slot. Some of us, including my buddy Don, who couldn't make it this Adepticon, says it's because the impact grenade is a melee profile. So now
Yeah.
Grievous can end in melee. That's why he has it. He wouldn't want to necessarily throw one black dice versus
Sure.
much better at
Sure.
that. Want to talk on that a little bit?
I think the original goal was for impact grenades so that he could fight vehicles better. But starting melees is cool too. So, yeah.
Okay, fair.
I'm not sure the exact reason why he has a grenade slot, but I do not believe it was to start melees. Originally was the intent. I don't think that was a conscious choice that was made necessarily.
It just kind of
But it is
naturally
certainly something
evolved.
that happened and is here. So
that's fair.
as we design things and we create things, right? We have ideas for why we want these things, and this isn't just me. This is the whole development team, right? And they make choices, and we make choices, and we do all these things. But every choice has, I'm going to say consequences, but I don't mean necessarily the negative connotation of consequences, right? But just it has implications, I guess is probably a better word. And we do the best that we can to find those implications and to root them all out and test them all and do all those kind of things. But there's too many. There's like, I say all the time, like, we have great playtesters. We have over 100 playtesters probably, and then we've got all of our developers and stuff for Legion specifically is what I'm talking about, and they do the best they can too, but they can't find everything either. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Legions players, and you guys will play more games in the first month of something released than we played in the whole development cycle. So you guys will find way more than we will right off the bat, and then we can adjust from there and see what we need to do. So.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. The Bark dice are coming out. We haven't seen their card or anything yet, but I'm assuming we'll see some more overrun shenanigans in the future from them, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad you're using the keyword a lot more.
It's a really fun and different keyword, right? That gives units a very different like presence and role on the table.
It does. It's a lot of fun. I'm not as a CS player as a co-player. I'm a little tired of Grievous personally, not in a negative way. Just
Sure.
He's a powerhouse, like he should be, right? It shouldn't have Grievous on the like he should be a powerhouse. Man, does he hurt some clones. Now that we're roughly a little over a year and a half out since the big rules 2.6 dropped, some of the questions we've got, and just curious more of like where it came from, was like the transport rule, for example, is very, very different than in pre-Legion 2.6. Yes. And just curious, like in the development cycle, when you guys were testing the new rules and all the new stuff you integrated, how did transport become that, and how are you liking how it turned out a year and a half later?
So transport was, I mean, we talked about how complicated overrun is. Transport had over transport, it had closed transport, it had several different modes that it could work in that all had their own special unique rules. And then there was a lot of finickiness about getting in transports, getting out of transports. What can I do while I'm in a transport? What can be done to me while I'm in a transport? All these different things. And that we felt was not an interesting enough thing for the amount of complexity that was adding to the game. So we were like, we'll just remove transports. So we removed transports. And then they were like, you can't remove transports. Like you can't just do that, right? Because that's the point of some of these things. Like Lats dropping off clones is just cool. Like we don't want that gone from the game, right? Like the Occupier tank rolling up and dumping off a bunch of Stormtroopers. That's just cool. But what we didn't particularly like about the old transport rules was it wasn't those things being done, right? It was Darth Vader riding around in a Lat, dropping your deployment zone on turn 2 and stuff. And like that's cool, but like that's not the vision that we saw from Star Wars of Lats, right? Like that isn't what was happening. So we decided to massively simplify it down into what it is now, which is your transport drives in, it drops you off. That's the point of a transport, and we don't have all of these complex rules about, do I exist for force powers? Can I be attacked? Can I do these things? Can I be picked for force power? Like all these different things that we can remove from the game and simplify in a place that where people certainly liked those options, right? they were not necessarily like integral to the game and the experience of the game, but we could remove 5 pages from the rule book or something that a niche community liked and played with, but the vast majority of the community didn't really interact with.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the logic behind transport and how we ended up where we are now, which is a much more simplified version and a significantly less powerful version, which also makes it easier to balance and easier to maintain and do that kind of stuff. So yeah,
It's kind of like a big scout in a way, right? But more controlled for like when the tank comes out or the lat comes out, you can drop them off, and they get a little bit farther up the board than they usually would in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Or a lot farther, depending which way you go through.
And you can do things like you can create mobile cover with your AA5s that have now dropped off a unit and things like that. So it did give a lot of other tactical play that's just very different from what it used to be.
Yeah.
And I understand that some people miss that, and I'm sorry for them to have removed something that they love from the game. But it was the judgment call that we made, right? Like,
You know, I think the majority of people, and they'll let me know if I'm wrong, I like it now that they've been playing it more. I think the number one rule I've seen that had the most heat when you guys first showed it that I don't hear anyone complaining about anymore is the cover rule.
Yeah.
And I think that's really funny because we got, even in our quote comments, we don't make the game, but we got rained for that cover rule when we showed it the first time, which was really funny to me. But
Sure.
as playing a lot of games, which we do for those who watch, cover's fun for the fact that, yes, you can have bad rolls that don't do anything, and you can have great rolls that you say 4 out of 4, that shouldn't happen, right?
Sure.
But more than not, I'm shooting a 2 or 3 dice attack into you. Heavy cover used to just kill that whole attack. Now there's a potential I can actually kill 2 or 3 things. Or vice versa, you have a super squad of fleets coming in and shooting at range 1. Now my heavy cover can take way more than 2 away potentially. So it's a nice balance for those dice pools. I think it helps even more for the smaller dice pools because some of those small dice pools really was not worth shooting in heavy cover.
Well, I mean, like you say, not worth it, like literally pointless.
Unless you magically got a crit.
Yeah. If you're shooting like a 2-die, and so
okay, here we go. Let's do it. I want to do it.
Here we go. So if you look at a lot of Legion design, there's lots of older units that have a lot of sharpshooter, and that rule was essentially put in to mitigate cover. Literally, that's what it did. But like that allowed you to create things like 2-die pools that could shoot into cover, because now cover just literally can cancel every single die you roll except for crits. But now we can have many more design types of units that don't necessarily have to have sharpshooter to get through cover, because now they can get through cover just naturally by it being a save. And you kind of see the same thing with Pierce, but that's a different conversation for another time. But sharpshooter is very common on older units, and if you've noticed, there's very little of it going forward. Like as newer units are coming out, very little sharpshooter because it's not needed anymore. You don't have to have it to be able to get through cover with your sniper teams or things like that. Even though they currently do have it, but you don't have to worry about it. I mean, especially rebel characters, right?
Most characters have lost it.
All the named ones,
like the named rebel characters all have it, but like so many other characters have lost it now because they can shoot 3 red dice or whatever, they surge something, and they're gonna get 2 or 3 hits, and
I mean, yeah, like I think
that can do something now.
For like a classic anecdote of the cover change and kind of how we started the journey. When we first took over stewardship of the game, we were working on creating Moff Gideon and that wave, so like the Dark Troopers and stuff like that. And we created a Moff Gideon, and we were talking about it, and we're like, yeah, this all feels pretty right. And then we looked at his dice pool, and we looked at the weapon, and immediately I think Andrew Durson was like, well, he doesn't have sharpshooter, so he needs that. And we were like, why? He's not a sharpshooter. He's like, yeah, but he only has, I think at the time he had like 1 red, 1 black, and like 2 black or something. And he's like, with that dice pool, he'll never kill anything. He's got to have sharpshooter too. That's just the rule. Every character must have sharpshooter too. And wait a minute. We're kind of like pump the brakes, and we started talking about it. And that was really the first moment I think where this conversation thoroughly took root in everyone's brains, and it really became something that we were like, this feels like such a limiting problem, because if you have to give him sharpshooter 2, you can't give him other rules because you only have so much room on the text, and you don't want to overwhelm people with that. And so I think, it was an interesting moment that I remember very clearly being like, we understood what cover did, but we really didn't understand what cover meant to the overall design of the game until that happened, and that kind of broke the floodgates. That became kind of a point of conversation that continuously happened as we talk about, okay, well, we know we're going to work on the 2nd edition. We know we want to revamp the rules. This seems like a thing where we can have a very positive impact. Cover seems to be denying us in a lot of different ways. The second moment where that really became a thing was when we were working on the weak ways, because they were originally supposed to be the first large large unit,
Yes, yes.
and we put them into playtest.
That's funny. They were supposed to be the first.
They were the first. So we put the nine member Weequay squad into playtest in Legion First Edition, and they blew out everything because they just got over cover. They hit that dice pool saturation where it was like, oh, this unit can kill any other unit. You know, like.
And then it was like, why are Weequays the best unit in the game? Like, that doesn't seem right.
And so immediately it kind of like came back where it was like, we really love the idea, you know, the places were like, we really love the idea of like these bigger units and having more Weequays is cool, but they just blow everything out. It's like, it's clones without the clone token sharing shenanigans to get to the dice pool you need to be able to overcome cover and do all this stuff. And so between those two moments, that really started to define the discussions and clarify what we had to work on. And then as we've talked about, we went through a lot of different iterations. But like, it's interesting to bring the sharpshooter conversation back and talk about that stuff, to look back on where we were and how we kind of figured out where we needed to go or where we thought we needed to go.
It also has massive implications on small size units, right? So like 4 rebel troopers with a heavy weapon, right? You lose 2 or 3 of those rebel troopers, they're now throwing 4 dice. It's not going to get over cover. So that unit just can't do anything anymore.
Yep.
Maybe you can add a suppression, but like that's it, and that's something, but it's not exciting. Like, so really, it was a really multifaceted discussion on how we ended up with. Maybe we really got to change cover a lot, and I think where we ended up is great. Like, I think we did a really, we picked the right option out of the sea of options, and ended up in a place where we can manipulate it through other rules. We have
Like dug in. Yeah, yeah.
And
No, I was
things
gonna say,
like
I like that space. I'm hoping we see more of that in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. You will.
You will. Okay.
Don't worry.
There we go.
Don't worry. We have all sorts of different things where we can now manipulate that to create different styles of survivability inside of units. So you have dug in can give, like, if Wookiees had dug in, how cool would that be? Now that's a hyper durable unit, but it's through a very different lens, right? Now the sharpshooter units are great against that Wookiee unit, but the normal units are not. So now there's different values for sharpshooter.
That's a good point.
So like we can play with all of these different interactions between keywords now that we're not necessarily as hamstrung by how just ubiquitously good heavy cover was before. So I think it's very exciting that we can open up some space to look at this.
Yeah, I think it's been the more people got to use it, the better people's opinion of it was, and I think it's a really good place now. The only other rules question I've been getting a lot of to ask you guys about too is more recent than the cover change was the whole standby change for like if you want to pop my standby relentless into you and I saber, you can't do that anymore, right? So just some of the behind the scenes development process that kind of led to that. I'm sure it's similar what the constraints were, but it would be nice to kind of just hear.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we know why for a lot of these things, right? You talk about like Yoda Bad Batch, right? Like compelling Bad Batch is wild. That's like a super high value play. And then we also had other units with steady like Vader and stuff. We have Grand Moff Tarkin now with pulling strings for Vader, who could then do those things. And we knew that was coming a long time ago, right? Like that was a change. We knew that was happening when that change occurred. So that was kind of a situation where we knew the constraints of the design space, where, hey, we can't make command cards that do this. We can't make compel. We can't make pulling the strings. Like the compel generic build your own Jedi option. I don't think we could have made that if that was still in the game, right? You have like the ARC troopers with charge. You have all those kind of things, right? Like you have Bad Batch in there. I think that list would have been absolutely wild. But it is a situation where maybe we did it a little too early, where we did it and everyone was like, well, this wasn't a problem. Why did you change this? Like, well, because it's going to be a problem.
You guys test so far in advance.
Yeah. I mean, we test 18 months in advance minimum, right? So like, I think we've learned a lot of lessons about when to put things out from things like this compel change and other things in the future or in the past where we've put things out kind of before it was a problem, and our philosophy has changed a little bit of like, let's get it a little closer to where it's going to be a problem before we post the change. So yeah, and I think, did that disproportionately affect some units? Absolutely, yes, it did. We have been working to address those things with points changes and points updates, and I think that's really where that needs to go. I've seen some conversations that are like, well, blah, 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 it's just not good anymore, and it's just terrible. Like, well, that's hyperbole, and I love a good hyperbole, believe me. I'm in on it. But, like, you got to think about it from, is this a unit that no longer functions, or is this a unit that just needs to be 10 or 15% cheap, right? And where do you go for that? And
or is it an upgrade part? Like,
or is it an
I
upgrade
feel like Imperial March has helped some Imperial units quite a bit too.
Absolutely.
And that wasn't a point reduction. That was just, here's a new tool.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see what else is in the upgrade pack.
There's some cool stuff in there. So I'm sure. Dude, I'm so excited. We got so much cool stuff coming. Yeah, so I think that one wasn't necessarily that it was a problem right now. It was that it was going to be a problem in the future. Maybe we just pulled the trigger a little too early on that. So,
All right, well, that's fair. And then I kind of want to close out on a more positive ending for Adepticon here.
All right.
Everything you guys,
Adepticon just started.
Yeah,
It's clear.
yeah,
So I don't
through
think it's
day
ending.
one.
Okay.
yeah,
Day one is still like 3 hours in. So
yeah. You guys have been here for more than a day, I'm assuming, right?
it's true.
Okay.
That's true. We did have to do some setup.
What are you guys more excited for about Adepticon? Is it your reveals? Is it the tournaments? Is it the worthy? Like, what gets you guys like, oh, I'm super excited to see people's reaction to X, Y, Z?
I mean, I think the roadmap's like such an easy one because it is a huge moment for the entire studio to be able to present the things that we've been working on.
Someone was telling me it's bigger than Pirates this year, so I'm like, I can't wait to see it. Would you say it's bigger than Pirates, your reveal? You can do it.
It's physically larger.
It's physically larger. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so. I think this is on the spot because then it's going to happen. It's gonna be like, oh, I was hyped up, and
This probably won't premiere until after it anyway, so you're good.
But no, I mean, I think so. I think this year we get to really pull out some surprises, and I don't think I think people will after the fact like I knew that was coming. I called it like years ago. I don't actually think that they truly know, right? Like it's easy to be like, I think they'll do this, and speculate, but I don't think anyone is truly prepared for what we're about to show them.
Ooh.
And that's super exciting because of the fact that we're finally at that point, right? We're less talking about the future now. We more get to live like the future in the present, and so that's really exciting. At the end of the day, Adepticon is just fun because we get to come and all be together, and it's a wild experience to we interact with the community. We go on podcasts. We get to talk to you guys from time to time. We might hop in the Discord from whatever, but like it's such a different experience of working on these things and watching or interacting online than coming here, seeing tables filled with people, having everybody just come by, say hi, want to like have a quick chat, tell you what they're excited about. That energy is like it's unique, right? It's like a super game store, and some of us do get to go to the game store every once in a while, but that experience is a little different these days from being like a player, and so getting to come here and almost getting to feel like a player again and to feel like the things that we've been working on for 18 months are brand new again. Like we get to share some of that new player like excitement where it's like you're so excited now, I'm so excited, like I feel like this is all new. And that to me is I think that's the most exciting thing about Adepticon is just getting back into that energy and that environment and connecting with people in that way. There's no other experience we get to do out of the year that's like that.
That's a good point because, like you said, you guys know what you're showing off tomorrow for like 18 months plus, so it's not even new anymore to you, but you get to revitalize that kind of new with all the excitement.
The excitement of the community about what we show is like it's a high, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's we thought it was cool, we made it, we loved it, we thought it was perfect, and then getting to put it out there and seeing people excited about that, you're like, it was cool, right? Like,
I did it. High fives all around.
Yes.
Perfect. And there's like there's like an immediate feedback loop of, I think everyone at the studio, like you get into making games, you get into doing this stuff because your ultimate goal is you want to make people excited, you want to bring a smile to their face, you want them joy, you want them to be joyful and to have this moment. So it's selfishly it's very exciting to be like right there at the moment that it happens, right? Because we can see the response online. We can see people say that it's cool, but it's very different from like, hearing that you sent a present to somebody and they open it and they tell you they love it versus like watching them open it. And there's that selfish excitement of just being like,
face lights up.
You get to watch them like consume this thing and open up the present. You get to see them light up, hopefully, and like have this moment. And you're like, I had some small part in doing that. The people whose work that we did all this time, like created this moment. And that's the most fulfilling thing at the end of the day for us. It's what really matters the most.
That's awesome. I don't create games like you guys do, but I have a kid, and I know the experience you're talking about is when you give them a present at Christmas. Christmas isn't fun for me because I get to open stuff anymore. It's fun to watch that face. Like, did I get it? I nailed it. Yes, right? Like, I understand that feeling 100%.
Yeah. And, I mean, I also love the tournaments, right? Like, seeing the creativity of people's lists, the choices that they make and that kind of stuff, and then talking to them about their lists and stuff. I really find enjoying that as well, right? Because one of my favorite parts of these games is exploration, So like looking for different options, finding different solutions to answers, doing that kind of stuff. And there's some very creative people out here playing some very weird stuff that I'm like, what did you do? Tell me about this. like what is happening? And I really enjoy that personally. I think that is something that is very like you can get that at a game store, kind of like what Shick was talking about, right? But it's not the same. You don't get it from 300 people at the same time. Playing a game that you love, that you worked on, that you built, and like sort of like Grievous with a grenade. Like I never saw that coming. Tell me about how you got there, right? Like tell me what's going on here. So yeah, I think that's a really exciting part for me as well, is getting to learn what the players are doing without getting it filtered through Reddit or Discord or something like that, right? Like the internet is a wonderful and crazy place, but it is also kind of a weird and terrible place where you only get certain parts of things. But here you get the genuine experience and the real thing. Yeah. And I think that's very, very exciting to me. It's something that I've always loved about attending events and talking to people.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say the most exciting thing is for the roadmap, because everyone of your staff keeps telling me I'm gonna be blown away, and I'm like, I'm ready to be blown away. I am ready. Let me have it.
So
Thank you both.
the whole seat. You'll only need the edge.
That's all I need, especially for these seats. These seats are they make you sick. Low. So if we look small, that's why. He was mentioning he looks like Frodo, so it's okay. I want to thank you guys both for coming on the channel again. We always appreciate when you hop on. I'll be talking to them again the morning after your big reveal. I think I got you first thing in the morning, Will. So we'll make sure to have our caffeine.
Somebody preempted you now because they keep adding on, but you are very top of the list.
Missed it by that much. No. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, we'll talk to you next time.